But I must say today, the Prime Minister gave his strongest statement yet that Islam, or at least radical Islam, is a big problem. Although that raises the question he still won't answer. If that's so, why do we import so many adherents?
Radical Islamic extremism is a major problem. We know that that is the case. We know that hate preachers can cause a real problem in distorting Islam and creating a circumstance where people are full of hate.
We backtracked a bit on that later, but again, I wonder if this new law of his to ban hate groups and punish hate preachers, is that going to actually work when there's such an obvious loophole? Here's Albanese's Attorney General today.
The bill will introduce an aggravated sentencing factor for Commonwealth offences motivated by hatred based on race or national or ethnic origin.
But attacks on Jews are not technically motivated by race, national or ethnic origins, since Jews are not, by definition, of a race, nation or necessarily an ethnic origin. They are members of a religion. So that law already has a serious flaw. And what's more, a lot of hate preachers will just step up the con we're already seeing. Oh no, we're not preaching hatred of Jews. We're just against Zionists who believe that Israel should exist. These people say, oh no, we're just against their political position. So the whole thing's a mess. And today the Nationals MPs refused to back this bill in the lower house while they worked out what changes they'd like made to it when it got to the Senate, where it's being debated right now. And in fact, skipping out of the chamber and to join us is one of those senators, Tuesday commentator Matt Canavan of the Nationals and former Resources Minister. Matt, we're very grateful for your time, especially tonight. You said yesterday you couldn't vote for the bill in its current form. Some changes are now being made. Could you vote for it now?
Look, very few changes have been made, Andrew, so no, I will not be voting for this bill. I think it's a ridiculously broad attack on free speech in this country. The issues you raised just before, in some senses they are taken care of, because while you're right to point out that Jewish people are not by definition a race or even a nation as such, as defined by this law, under the Racial Discrimination Act, Jewish people have been interpreted as an ethno-religious group. That was the evidence to the Parliamentary Committee last week. And so therefore, apparently they're captured by this. Now, to my mind, that issue, that's one issue that gives rise to the fact that this bill enshrines identity politics in law. And if you fall foul of the identity politics police, you're in big trouble if this law is to go through. We just fought a referendum a few years ago on not dividing our country by race or by our colour, not dividing ourselves. But this law is effectively a backdoor to the voice by introducing these concepts of race, of colour, of nation status, and gives different rights to different groups of people in this country for the first time in our criminal law, not just in civil law, our criminal law. So that's one reason I'm against it. Another reason I'm against it is this law, in the first line of the law, says it's about protecting the Australian community from economic, social and psychological harm. Now, I don't think that's something that's been well canvassed but to the rest of the country. That hang on, aren't we here today to try and stop terrorism, to try and stop violence, to try and stop people who are killing and hurting other Australians in a physical fashion? But this law introduced concepts that simply a harm to your mental state, hurt feelings, potentially an economic harm that could be, say, the boycott. What if somebody is to get behind a boycott of Russian goods because they invaded Ukraine? Well, that certainly is attacking a group of people based on their national origin. It certainly would cause economic harm and therefore could potentially be defined as a hate crime under these laws. There are a lot of holes here. There are a lot of things that haven't been worked out properly, and that's why we shouldn't pass this tonight after just a week of it being in the public domain.
Now, like you, I am very disturbed by the new tribalism, the way our country is being changed by mass immigration and the identity politics. And we've even now, just dealing with this new reality we've got through mass immigration and the tribalism. We've got police protecting sports events with long arms. You've got tougher laws on free speech, on assembly. You've got police chiefs in New South Wales and Victoria now allowed to limit protests on their own say-so. All these are restrictions we never needed before, Matt. And in fact, the New South Wales Police Commissioner today said he will extend the ban on marches through the city for another 2 weeks, extend the ban particularly in Bondi, but he has cut the banned area to include Hyde Park to allow a planned hate march by anti-Australia Day protesters. Listen to this.
The protest that is planned by the First Nations community on Australia Day will be managed down through College Street and out of southern Sydney. On Australia Day, I expect that we'll have tens of thousands of community members, mums and dads, boys and girls wanting to come into the CBD. This is about ensuring that we enable people to protest, enable free speech, but make sure that the community remains safe.
So this is picking favourite identity groups that can march and which can't, all down to a police chief commissioner. You can get, I guess what happened, Australia Day march is now going to include pro-Palestinian protesters who also hate Australia. Matt, we have got a cultural rot that's at foot here.
The reason we're in this place, Andrew, is because we have failed to defend and have pride in our own country, but we have been willing to elevate and promote every other culture in the world except the Australian culture, and that has led us to be a nation of tribes and has in part led to the shocking scenes we saw a month ago. And then now, in response to that problem we have, the treatment we're prescribing to the patient is more division. As we've gone through before, this hate groups bill introduces more tribalism, more division to treat the problem of tribalism and division. And in my view, then, that this treatment we're going to apply tonight, probably get through with the support of the Liberal Party and the government, that treatment will only make things worse. It's going to increase division. We'll have to come back probably in a month or years ahead and we'll do something about Islamophobia, or some group will do that. The Greens and Labor will team up for that.
Without a doubt.
And it'll just keep doubling down. And so what we need to do in response to what has happened in Bondi is to rediscover the pride in Australian culture and what it means to be Australian, our way of life, and promote that. And anyone that doesn't support that way of life or cannot accede to that has no right to be in this country.
Matt Canavan, I think that is the issue of this year, in fact, probably this decade, really. Thank you so much indeed for your time.